What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG down there. Another episode of Access Magic this Monday, and so you know that means there's going to be a ton of Eldritch Moon spoilers. That's when the most impactful spoilers come out, and that's kind of when the most come out too. They didn't disappoint today. We got a ton of big stuff that's definitely worth talking about. Let's go ahead and launch into it. Well, I want to talk about the thing that everyone's talking about first, and there's a bunch of stuff people are talking about, but this is definitely the number one attention grabber today. This is Liliana, the Last Hope. Finally get to see what Liliana does in this set. Here she is. She's 3 mana, that's 2 black and a generic, for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. If you +1 or up to 1 target creature gets -2, -1 until your next turn. If you neg-2 her, you put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then her ultimate, -7, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. Everyone hates her, at least on Mythic Spoiler and Salvation. And I know Salvation is a particularly surly and salty board. And it's sometimes there's nice people, but it's got a reputation as a salty board. And people just don't like it. Honestly, I've seen way more people that hate it than love it. But actually, I'm going to do a reverse Tamiyo. You know, everybody liked Tamiyo. I was not a fan. This, not many people liked so far, their initial reaction. I actually think this card is quite good, especially in Delirium decks. I mean, Delirium's not really doing much on turn 3 anyway, and this gives us a couple of plays. You know, turn 2 we can play a Hangerback, block with it, and then next turn dump a couple of things in our graveyard, get our Hangerback back. Not too shabby, and the -2, -1 is actually very, very good, and that's probably what I'll talk about the most with this Planeswalker. It's not often that you see a Planeswalker with a plus ability that protects it. There's a couple of intricacies with this, and I've got a big list of things that this works against, so bear with me here. But the first thing I want to point out is that it says until your next turn, the creature gets -2, -1. That means that this is in a way a lot like, you know, Jace, once you flip Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Sort of reminiscent of that, except this can actually kill creatures, and it can put creatures out of combat effectively, you know. It negates damage from Sylvan Advocate, that's very important, so there's that right there. But there's also a host of creatures in the format this thing can kill. Hope you don't mind I read from my notes, because I've got a bunch of these things written down. First of all, it kills Hangerback Walkers and the tokens they leave behind. It kills Nissa tokens. It kills Dragon Hunters, Kytheons, and Envoys in mono white aggro. Not to mention Naked Thalia's Lieutenants. That's a funny sentence, but it does. Zulaport Cutthroats, that's cool. Loam Dryad in that same deck. Kills Scion tokens as well. They'll have to sack him, but it still kills them. Falconwrath Aristocrat in the upcoming Vampires deck that might be important. Kills Kessig Prowler in a Wolf deck that might be important. It kills Dragon Master Outcast. It blanks Advocates, already said that. It leaves 5 toughness creatures, this is important, vulnerable to Languish and Grasp of Darkness. That's way more important than it looks, especially considering that you can follow up a Liliana with a Languish on the next turn and kill any 5 toughness guys that happen to be hanging around. That's important. It can also completely help to negate any lifelink benefits from things like Shambling Vents, and definitely detract from the lifelink benefits of things like Kalidas or even Gisela. So that's another thing to consider. That +1 does an awful lot more than people think it does. I just named a bunch of things that it takes out. Just no questions asked. And again, blanks, you know, creature damage that's 2 or less. That's good on a bunch of different creatures, not to mention in company decks, you know, mono white aggro. It's just going to blank damage from stuff, even if it doesn't kill the creature. So that +1 is fan-freaking-tastic and better than people are giving it credit for. The -2 is card advantage. That's awesome. And in a Delirium deck, it does exactly what you want it to do. Could also be your Planeswalker and Reanimator decks if we wanted it to be. And the -7, a lot of people are saying, like, let's just play her in a zombie deck. You don't actually have to play her in a deck with any zombies, you know. When you ultimate her, you'll get at least the 2 zombies. And then you'll get 4 zombies. And it'll keep going like that until you have a huge board full of zombies. So that ultimate is actually crazy if you can get it off. So I like a lot of things about this Liliana, and I'm not really sure why everyone's being so sourpuss. I think that people wanted Liliana of the Veil to be reprinted, and that was, I can get, you want that card to come down in price, and so another printing would really help with that. That'd be nice, but they'll probably do that in like Modern Masters or something, or Legacy Masters if they do that again, or Eternal Masters. But, you know, a master set is all I'm saying. I just don't know that they'll put her in standard, even though she would have been great. Would have been nice to have Lily of the Veil in, but it's just, that's asking a lot. We've gotten a decent Liliana, and I feel like people are undervaluing this in the same way they undervalued Vryn's Prodigy when that card first came out. You know, if you go back and look at this, the discussion in the spoilers on Mythic Spoiler at least, and you go to Jace Vryn's Prodigy, there are people in there saying like, this is really bad, you know, why, this is the worst Jace ever. Seriously, people are saying that. And they were definitely proven wrong. I think this is a case where this isn't going to get to like $90 the way Jace was, but this is going to be a very relevant Planeswalker in the upcoming standard specifically. So let me know what you think. Have I swayed you, or is it still bad? Or did you think it was good to begin with and you're like, preach? Like, let me know how you feel about Liliana down there in the comments. But we need to move on to her oath. We get a Liliana, we also get her oath because she's joining the Gatewatch. So Avengers Assemble, we've got Oath of Liliana right here. It's 2 and a black for a legendary enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. And at the beginning of each end step, if a Planeswalker entered the battlefield under your control this turn, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. I'm actually ambivalent about the oath. People have been saying all day the oath is better than the walker. I don't know about that at all. Edict effects like this are maybe not as good in a standard, where the best decks are decks like tokens, green-white tokens, and collected company decks that play 30 creatures. You know, I don't know if this is the best thing ever, but you can never sneeze at creature removal. End of the day, this is creature removal. That's not bad, but I really actually like that second line of text, that sort of oath ability, you know. Putting a Planeswalker into play and it just sort of auto-protecting itself with a 2/2 is very good, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's really, really good. You know, we talk about Planeswalkers protecting themselves all the time. I think this is a great way to set up, say, a Gideon and put in a 2/2 Knight and a 2/2 Zombie, you know, just on turn 4. It seems like really, really good initiative. Or you could get the Zombie and get the Emblem next turn. Who knows what you do. But it doesn't seem bad necessarily. Although I will say that the Planeswalker decks people are building right now tend to be either 3 or 4 colors. You know, people are talking 5-color Planeswalkers. But people are talking mostly Bant Planeswalkers is the #1 thing that I see. And people are also trying to include red so they can play Chandra. So those things are happening, but not really many people are talking about black, even today after having seen these. But is it worth shoehorning black mana into a Planeswalker deck, like a Super Friends deck, so that we can get a zombie every time we play a walker? I'm not really sure about that. But do know that this is susceptible to things like bounce and flicker effects, blink effects and stuff. So that is also worth noting. You know, if we can blink this somehow or bounce it back to our hand and cast it again, we'll get that Edict effect over and over, and that is definitely worth noting. Okay, so those were the 2 things that people are talking about the most, but there's a bunch of stuff released today that is totally worth talking about, and we'll get to it. But first I want to spend like a few seconds on a card that was spoiled over the weekend, really the only thing that was spoiled until 3 o'clock in the morning my time yesterday. So this is Turn Aside right here. It's just a blue mana for an instant, which counter targets spell that targets a permanent you control. This is a reprint right here, and it's not a bad reprint. Not terrible timing for it. This could help out company decks from a sideboard, I would say. But there's really not much else to say about the card. You know, sideboard for humans decks that play blue, next. Another counter spell actually was spoiled just super late last night. This is one of the things that was spoiled at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is Summary Dismissal right here. Summary Dismissal is 4 mana. That's 2 and 2 blue for an instant, of course. Exile all other spells and counter all abilities. I usually don't like 4-mana counters, but this could obviously be a thing. I mean, the first thing you think about is Storm. You know, this is the Storm killer. Counters everything that's on the stack at the time. That seems like it'd be pretty good. And counters abilities, who knows how important that'll be, although I'm sure that it's sort of important, but it probably won't see any standard play if I had to guess. I mean, 4-mana counter spells are bad, and we're not doing like Storm. That's not happening in standard. So barring any crazy mechanics, I don't think this will see standard play. But we'll have to see if it's decent against the Storm decks and other formats. I think we probably already have better pieces than this, to be honest with you. You know, 4 mana is an awful lot, but maybe, we'll see. This right here is a cool wolf, which we don't see enough of, honestly. We've seen a few this set, but we need to see a lot more cool wolves. But this guy goes a long way, I think, towards making the deck competitive. This is Spirit of the Hunt right here, and he's a generic in 2 green, that's 3 mana, for a 3/3 wolf spirit with flash. And he has, when Spirit of the Hunt enters the battlefield, each other creature you control, that's a wolf or a werewolf, gets +0/+3 until end of turn. Like I said, this might help make the deck a little more competitive. You know, it gives it an option against Languish, which is very important, at instant speed, by the way. And it helps it out in like bad combat situations, allows us to swing in more freely, allows us to block more freely, and really screw them up if they think they have the upper hand. So don't mind the card at all. Do note, though, that it doesn't give itself the toughness bonus. That could be bad. But, you know, 3 mana, 3/3 flash, decent stats, and can really help at instant speed, especially during the combat step is where we'll most likely see this. But also, again, against Languish and stuff. This card seems fine. Oh, and Kozilek's Return seems good against that. You know, seems good against Radiant Flames. So, Not a terrible card in any way. I could definitely see it seeing actual main deck play in Wolves. But again, every Wolf you see, it's like, does this make the deck competitive? I'm not totally sure, although this is obviously attempting to. Up next is a card that I really, really hope is part of a cycle, and it looks like it probably is. This is Providence right here. It's a 7 mana sorcery. That's 5 generic and 2 white for a sorcery with, you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, at the beginning of your first upkeep, your life total becomes 26. And the actual thing the card does, if you don't reveal it just when you cast it, is your life total becomes 26. So that's kind of cool. Twice 13, by the way. 13's been sort of a running gag the last couple of sets, so we'll double it and get 26 and make it the sort of angel life gain card. Card does not actually look terrible, although it probably won't see too much play, to be honest with you, Although I could see the sort of Felidar Sovereign budget deck wanting this, or maybe the Aile deck could want this. If you could start the game at 26 and play a turn 2 Aile, you're really, really close to that 30 life threshold that you need. So it doesn't actually look horrible. I could see control decks wanting something like this. But the sorcery speed is going to really, really hurt this card. It'd be great if you could play it EOT, but you can't. You have to spend 7 mana, you have to tap out for this, which a control deck, the deck that wants to play it most, won't want to do. Although I will say one more thing. If you tap out, you go to 26, so you might not be so worried about tapping out. But there's a lot of board states in this format that could, from 26, they can put you at like 8. So I just don't know that the card is that good, although I do like it. I don't know if that makes sense. The card might not be good, but I like it. It's at least good design. This next card isn't the last card we'll cover, but it is the most recent card spoiled today. This is Incendiary Flow right here, and it's 2 mana. That's a generic and a red for a sorcery. Boo. Incendiary Flow deals 3 damage to target creature or player. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So sorcery speed lightning strike that exiles. We'll take it. Now, this is a way for red to take out Hangerback Walker and every other small creature in the format and never have to worry about them ever again. And it can hit the player. Thank you. Fine. Welcome back, Burn that can hit the player. Now, losing instant speed, I'll say this a few times this video, losing instant speed is a problem. It's kind of a big problem because it makes the card, Lightning Strike is reactionary. It's a reactionary card that's usually played on your opponent's turn at some point. Can't do that with this. We have to absorb an entire turn doing it, and then we're tapped out. So that's kind of bad, but it's not going to stop anybody from playing the card. It's still 3 damage that can either hit the dome or kill a guy forever, and we'll never see him again, unless it's Eternal Scourge. But, really, really important card. Super glad it exists. Thank you, Wizards, for at least bringing this to us, I guess. I mean, you could have given it instant speed, whatever, it would have been amazing, but I'll take what I can get, and so will the rest of us. Now here's a land I hate. This is Nephalia Academy right here, and it's got tap to add a colorless to your mana pool, and it also has just a static ability that you don't have to tap or anything. Just if a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard a card, you may reveal that card and put it on top of your library instead of putting it anywhere else. Boo! Boo. Don't ruin 8-Rack's fun in Modern, although I'm not sure the card completely ruins the fun of that deck. But it more or less does. It's definitely a huge hit to the deck. And don't dash our hopes of making a sort of discard deck in Standard. Just building it up like maybe we can make a discard deck. Come on, Wizards. Then you give us this, which doesn't, you don't pay mana for it. Any deck can play it. You don't even have to tap the stupid thing. It just sits there and does this. Now the thing is, you won't just always put the card on top. It's usually just going to be when it's a very important card that you can't lose. Because sometimes the replacement effect of putting the card on top is going to be really annoying. It's going to feel like you don't really get to draw a card, which kind of sucks. Sometimes drawing a card is like literally one of the best things you can do in a game of Magic. It's if not the best. So it sucks to replace your draw, but you won't lose the card. Up next is one of 2 cards today that will require a translation. Here it is for you. This is United Resistance. It's a generic and 2 red for a sorcery. It's got Escalate 1, so you just pay 1 generic mana for each mode you want to choose beyond the first mode. It's got 3 different modes. Mode 1 is target player discards all cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards. Second mode is United Resistance deals 4 damage to target creature. And the third mode is United Resistance deals 3 damage to target opponent. So I'm pretty sure this card is very, very good. Paying 3 mana for it would be fine. And paying 4 mana looks pretty enticing. Kill a guy and deal 3 to you doesn't seem bad at all. Either that or, kill a guy and Wheel of Fortune myself. That doesn't seem bad either. So the card looks fine and very situational, a lot of things on it that you want to be doing. And you can pay 5 and just do everything on the card, you know, that doesn't seem bad either. Although again, with the sorcery speed makes the card much worse. The card would be fairly busted if it had instant speed, to be honest with you. But even with sorcery speed, the card looks playable, especially with things like Goblin Dark Dwellers in the format. I want to have to say this before I move on. Sphinx's tutelage decks could really like this. You know, turn 3 tutelage, turn 4, you pump 4 into this and kill one of their guys, and then discard your hand. That, you know, seems fine right there all day. So Sphinx's tutelage could really like this, and Goggles decks too. Goggles decks probably like this card as well. So a lot of love to go around, and the card will probably find a home somewhere. This next card is another card that a lot of people are talking about today. A lot of gabbing about this thing, you know, whether people love or hate it. Super polarizing. So this right here is Deploy the Gatewatch. This is Avengers Assemble right here. This is 6 mana, that's 4 generic and 2 white for a sorcery with look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to 2 planeswalker cards from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. A Coco for planeswalkers. That's what a lot of people are calling this, but it is not. This is no Coco at all. This is an imposter. It's sorcery speed, and I think this is the last time I'll say this video, but sorcery speed just makes this nowhere near as desirable. Again, this is no Coco. You go Glen Coco. The Collected Company is good because you can play it in any situation. You can play it at their end of turn and have hasty guys, basically. You can play it during their combat step and totally ruin their day. You can play it during your combat step and ruin any blocks or tricks that they're trying to play on you. The Collected Company just has so many flexible uses in times when people have to worry about it. But you can only play this card on one of your main phases. And 6 mana is fairly pricey. I mean, we can get to 6. We can get to 6 in this format. And the format may even slow down even more. In September when rotation happens, you know, we lose some fast stuff, we lose some 2 power guys for just 1 mana in white, we lose Kithian, you know, we lose Dragon Hunter, we lose actually a bunch of stuff that's really good on the very low end of mono white. Not only that, but we lose Collected Company, so it's just like these 30 creature aggro decks may not be the same upon rotation. We're just not sure. So something this a little slower could see some play, don't get me wrong, I'm just not as impressed by it as some people are. I mean, it definitely creates possibilities for deck building, and I'm excited about those possibilities. But you will have to play like 12 to 16 walkers to make this reliable. And I know some decks have no problem doing that at all, but I just don't know how I feel. So that one's not great, but it probably will see standard play. So let's end today with 2 cards that I absolutely love an awful lot and I'm very happy about. This first thing is Selfless Soul, and it requires a translation. Selfless Soul is just a generic and a white for a spirit with flying, and it's a 2/1. You can sacrifice Selfless Soul to have creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. I love this art too. He used to be an adventurer until he took an arrow to every part of his body. Okay, so I love this card. In Standard, it doesn't make your guys language proof, but it does everything else. I'd say this will be really good in company decks, maybe as a sideboard piece, and probably as a sideboard piece for the mono white aggro deck as well. And this is a reason it might actually see main board play. This thing makes Ojutai's Command super dangerous for the next couple of months while it's still in Standard. At instant speed, you can either gain 4, draw a card, whatever, and bring this back from your graveyard. Again, at instant speed to give all your guys indestructible until end of turn. That's crazy. Like, if this thing is in your graveyard, people have to really, really watch out for Ojutai's Command. I just think that this really ups the power of that card for the next couple of months. So love that interaction. And also love that this is as cheap as it could be. They slap flying on the thing. It's a bear, you know, 2 power, 2 mana guy. Everything about this I love, and I could see it seeing modern or even legacy play. It's that good. But it is in competition with this. I really like this card. This right here is Ishkana, that's a silly name, Graph Widow. Ishkana is 5 mana, that's 4 generic and a black, for a 3/5 legendary spider with reach. She also has Delirium. When Ishkana Graph Widow enters the battlefield, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, we know how Delirium works, put 3 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield. And it also has an onboard ability that's 6 generic and a black. Target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. Okay, so obviously this is the big legendary commander spider that everyone wanted. Like, a lot of people really wanted this card. A lot. So I'm glad you guys got it. And it's going to be really good in EDH. It's got, you know, 2 colors for its color identity. There's black right there in the activated ability. So that's good. And that's probably it, right? Right? Actually, I do think this card could have standard impact. It survives Languish and Grasp of Darkness. That's pretty cool. It solves the problem completely of Hangerback Walker and the tokens that it leaves behind. It can be displaced. That, my friends, is super important that you can displace this. And it can help win board stalls. And there's a lot of decks that get into board stalls, whether it's company or green-white tokens in this format. Ton of board stalls right now. And this is amazing in board stalls, especially if we can displace it a time or two and just start doing crazy damage. So this card has standard implications. I mean, I just said it's good against green-white tokens and banned company. And it's not half bad against a lot of the other creature-based decks in the format, like mono-white aggro or green-white aggro, you know. So the card is very good against some of the best decks in the format. Now, Delirium is tough to get, but this gives you until at least turn 5, sometimes turn 4 if you got a mana ramper or something. But it gives us until turn 4 or 5 to get Delirium, which in Delirium decks, turn 4 usually is when you're going to get it. That's usually when it goes online. And turn 5, you'll almost certainly have it. You know, turn 4, Mind Rack Demon will usually put D online. That's a hilarious stance. And then turn 5, you play this guy. And you just take over the board. You can also cheat this into play on turn 3 with a Cryptolith, right? Although you won't get the spiders, you'll still have this guy and you can displace him later. That's cool. And the last thing I'll say about this guy is don't forget that Westvale Abbey is a card in this standard, you know. This gives us 4 of the 5 creatures we need for Westvale Abbey right then and there. So that's also a consideration, you know. Just a thing that makes 3 tokens when it comes into play is always good. You know, it's not Hornet Queen, but it's probably in some ways better than Hornet Queen in a lot of situations, you know. Winning board stalls is very important. The decks it's good against makes the card playable right away, and the fact that it's good against black decks that run Languish and Grass makes it playable. I mean, the card is playable against almost any strategy in Standard right now. Bottom line, this card does a lot, and I would in no way be surprised if this is not necessarily a Standard staple, but definitely a piece that it finds its way into Standard somehow as maybe a 2 of in certain decks. Definitely could see this, and I hope it makes it because it's got a lot going for it, and the things it has going for it are deceptive. There, you know, there's definitely intricacies, and you have to look at the card in the bubble of the Standard meta, but it definitely does a lot in the current meta, so look out for this guy, seriously. Well, that's all the spoilers for Monday, July 4th, 2016. Happy Independence Day to my wizards in the United States, and happy July 4th to everybody else in the world. It can still be a beautiful day for you guys. So this is all the spoilers I've seen so far today. There may be some more tonight, and there will almost certainly be more tomorrow morning. So stick with the channel, sub if you haven't subbed yet, and you'll get all this content. Like it if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you guys later. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.